Good evening, students. Today we are going to see chapter number 3 of your English Moments textbook, Iswaran the Storyteller. Let me explain you first of all what is the introduction, what we say introduction of the chapter. The title of this chapter, Iswaran the Storyteller, tells us that this story is about Iswaran. He is called the storyteller because as a storyteller because storytelling is an art, he is very good at it. Ishwaran uses special effects, does voice modulation, use his body language to make the story realistic so that the listener, that is Mahendra, यहाँ पे वो जो listener है वो कौन है Mahendra, gets attracted and captivated in his story. The writer wants to highlight this quality of Ishwaran, that he was so good at telling stories that they appeared to be real. His stories were a source of entertainment for महेंद्र. ठीक है. नाउ ये जो स्टोरी है वो बहुत ही ह्यूमरस है, फनी है, क्योंकि ईश्वरन जो है पूरी स्टोरीज को है ना कुछ अच्छी तरीके से बनाता था. ठीक है. अब हम लोग पैराग्राफ बाय पैराग्राफ वी आर गोइंग टू सी दिस. सॉरी. The story was narrated to Ganesh by young man Mahendra by name. He was a junior supervisor in a firm which offered on hire supervisors at various types of construction sites, factories, bridges, dams, and so on. Mahendra's job was to keep an eye on the activities at the work site. He had to keep moving from place to place every now and then as ordered by his head office, from a coal mining area to railway bridge construction site, from there after a few more months to chemical plant which was coming up somewhere. So some difficult words. The first is your word supervisor. Supervisor means क्या होता है? A person whose job is to check work of all the other people. So now explanation of this paragraph. Mahendra narrated the story about his cook Ishwaran to Mr. Ganesh. Mahendra worked as junior supervisor in a company which provided junior supervisors to various construction companies on rent. He got posted at different sites like factories, bridges, and dams which were under construction. Mahendra's work was to keep an eye on all the workers at the site. He had to change places often and worked at various places like coal mine, railway bridge, construction site of a chemical plant. Okay, next paragraph. He was a bachelor. His needs were simple and he was able to adjust himself to all kinds of odd conditions, whether it was an ill-equipped circuit house or a makeshift canvas stand in the middle of a stone quarry. But one asset he had was his cook, Ishwaran. The cook was quite attached to Mahendra and followed him uncomplainingly wherever he was posted. He cooked for Mahendra, washed his clothes, and chatted away with his master at night. He could weave out endless stories and anecdotes on the varied subjects. Now, some difficult words. Now, what do you mean by word bachelor? The person who is unmarried. Then makeshift. ये वाला जो word है makeshift means temporary. Quarry. Quarry means आपका mine. Then assets mean advantage. Then anecdote का मतलब होता है short, amusing or interesting story about a real incident or a person. Now understand this paragraph. As Mahendra was unmarried, he did not have a family. He was able to live in this temporary quarters provided at the construction sites. He adjusted well in circuit house, which did not provide the basic amenities, or even the tents, which were temporary in nature. Mahendra had an advantage. He was accompanied by his cook, Ishwaran. Ishwaran was very close to Mahendra and accompanied him everywhere. He did not complain about the tough conditions in which he had to live. He cooked food for him, washed his clothes, and gave him company by talking to him at night. Ishwaran had a quality that he was good at telling stories, and he entertained Mahendra with his stories which were based on different subjects. Now next para. Ishwaran also had an amazing capacity to produce vegetables and cooking ingredients seemingly out of nowhere in the middle of desolate landscape with no shops visible for miles around. He would miraculously conjure up the most delicious dishes made with fresh vegetable within an hour of arriving at the zinc sheet shelter at the new workplace. Again some difficult words. तो desolate, desolate का मतलब होता है uninhabited, that is empty. And conjure up का मतलब होता है together or create with magic. Then comes your zinc shield shelter. Zinc shield shelter क्या होता है? A temporary place to live with the roof made of metallic sheets. Now, explanation. Mahendra tells Ganesh that Ishwaran was a great cook. Whenever they shifted to a new location, he would gather all vegetables and other ingredients required by him to cook in no time. As they lived at places which was not inhabited by people, ज़्यादा लोग नहीं होते हैं, in temporary shelters with roofs made of metallic sheets, it seemed as if he would do some magic and gather all ingredients out of nowhere. Next para. Next para is Mahendra would be up early in the morning and leave for work after breakfast, carrying some prepared food with him. Meanwhile, Ishwaran would tidy up the shed, wash the clothes, and have a leisurely bath, pouring several buckets of water over his head, muttering a prayer all the while. It would be lunchtime by then. After eating, he would read for a while and before dozing off. The book was usually some popular Tamil thriller running to hundreds of pages. Its imaginative descriptions and narrative flourish would hold Ishwaran in thrall. Now, some difficult words. Muttering. Muttering means speaking in low voice. Dozing off. Dozing off means sleeping away. Yeah, falling asleep. Then narrative flourishes. Flourishes matlab descriptions. Okay, detailed descriptions. And enthrall, ये जो last word है, that means the stage of being in someone's power. Now, explanation of this para. So, Mahendra would woke up early in the morning, get ready and leave for work after eating his breakfast. He would carry his lunch along with him. After he left, Ishwaran would clean the living place, wash Mahendra's clothes, and have a nice bath. He would take many buckets of water and pour water on head while mumbling a prayer. After that, he would eat his lunch and read his favorite book in Tamil language. Ishwaran would carried away with the details and descriptions given in the book that he read. Then he would go off to sleep. Next para. So his own descriptions were greatly influenced by Tamil authors that he read. When he was narrating even the smallest of incidents, he would try to work in suspense and surprise ending into the account. For example, instead of saying that he had come across an uprooted tree on the highway, he would say with eyebrows suitably arched and hands held out in a dramatic gesture and said, the road was deserted and I was all alone. Suddenly I spotted something that looked like an enormous bushy beast lying sprawled across the road. I was half inclined to turn and go back, but as I came closer, I saw that it was fallen tree, with its dry branches spread out. Mahendra would stretch himself back in his canvas chair and listen to Ishwaran's tales uncritically. Again, difficult words. The word arched. Arch का मतलब होता है curved. Gesture का मतलब होता है movement of hands from head to indicate something. Deserted का मतलब होता है empty and enormous का मतलब होता है huge. Now explanation. As Ishwaran read stories with detailed description, he narrated them in the same way. Mahendra recollects that he would narrate even a small incident with lot of suspense and surprise which made it very interesting for the listener. Then he gives an example that instead of saying that he was walking down the highway and he come across a tree which had broken and had fallen on the road, Ishwaran would use his facial expression and bodily gestures to narrate it. He would say that the road was empty and he was all alone. This would create suspense in listener's mind. Then he would say that all of a sudden he saw the huge beast lying across the road. As he walked ahead, his mind was telling him to turn and go back. As he reached closer, he saw that it was a tree that had fallen was lying on the road. The branches of the tree had spread out and seemed as if it was a huge beast. Mahendra says that This talent of Ishwaran made the simple story very interesting and it captivated him. Captivated matlab attracted. Although he knew that some of the stories were not true, but the way in which Ishwaran narrated them was so interesting that Mahendra would not say anything and listen to him quietly. Now, next paragraph. The place I come from is famous for timber, Ishwaran would begin. There is a richly wooded forest all around. The logs are hauled on the lorries by elephant. They are huge, well-fed beasts. When they turn wild, even the most experienced mahout is not able to control them. After this prologue, Ishwaran would launch into an elaborate anecdote involving an elephant. Now, timber. Timber means wood that has been processed for commercial purpose. Hauled means transported. Prologue means an introductory speech and elaborate उसका मतलब होता है detailed. Now Mahendra recollects another story told by Ishwaran. Ishwaran said that his native village was surrounded by a huge forest which was full of trees. The huge logs of timber were sold for commercial purpose. They were transported onto the vehicles by elephants. They were huge elephants, and if they become mad, they would get out of the control, and the mahout would not be able to tame them. mahout मतलब जो उनको कैरी करता है, उनके साथ जो चलते हैं वो elephant keeper जिसको बोलते हैं. This introductory session was followed by a detailed story involving an elephant. Now next paragraph. One day a tusker, again elephant, tusker का मतलब होता है, escaped from the timber yard and began to roam about, stamping on bushes, tearing up wild creepers and breaking branches at will. You know, sir, how an elephant behaves when it goes mad. Ishwaran would get so caught up in the excitement of his story that he would get up from the floor and jump about, stamping his feet in emulation of the mad elephant. Now, difficult words. Tusker, जैसे बताया, elephant. Roam about means move around. Stamping means hitting with force. Emulations means effort to match or surpass a person by imitating, or you can say it by copying. So, the story was narrated as follows. One day, an elephant escaped from the timber yard and roamed around the forest. It stepped on the bushes and crushed them, tore the creeper plants, tore matlab फाड़ देना, तोड़ देना, and broke branches of trees which came in its way. Ishwaran asked Mahendra whether he knew how a mad elephant behaved. In order to make his story more effective, Ishwaran stood up and jumped around the place, hitting his foot on the ground in order to copy the actions of the mad elephant. Next paragraph. This is a bit long paragraph, but try to understand. Elephant reached the outskirts of our town, breaking the fence down like matchsticks. He would continue. It came into the main road and smashed all the stalls selling fruits, mud pots, and clothes. People ran helter and skelter in panic. The elephant now entered a school ground where children were playing, breaking through the brick wall. All the boys ran into the classroom and shut the doors tight. The beast grunted and wandered about pulling out the football goal post, tearing down the volleyball net, kicking and flattering the drum kept for water, and uprooting the shrubs. Meanwhile, all the teachers had climbed up to the terrace of the school building. From there, they helplessly watched the depredations of elephant. There was not a soul below on the ground. The streets were empty as if inhabitants of the entire town had suddenly disappeared. So, some difficult words. Outskirts means outer area. Helter skelter means here and there. Panic, sudden fear causing unthinkable behavior. Grunted, grunted means made a loud sound. Depredations mean attacks which are made to destroy something. Now explanation. As the elephant reached the outer boundary of their town, it broke the fences. The fences seemed as if they were like matchsticks for huge elephant. The elephants reached the main road and broke all the stalls selling different things like fruits, mud pots, and clothes. The people were taken unaware and so they ran here and there. Then it broke the wall of school and entered the ground where the students were playing. All the students ran back into their classroom and closed the doors. The elephant made loud noise and roamed around in the school ground. It broke the goalpost in the football ground, tore the net that had been put up in the volleyball court, stepped on the water drum and broke it, and tore many plants as well. The teacher had climbed onto the roof of the school building and watched helplessly as the elephant destroyed the school property. There was not even a single person to be seen around. All the streets of the town were empty as the people were scared of an elephant. Next paragraph. So I was studying in the junior class at that time and was watching the whole drama from the rooftop. I don't know what came over me suddenly. I grabbed a cane from the hands of one of the teacher and ran down the stairs and into the open. The elephant grunted and menacingly swung a branch of tree which it held in its trunk. It stamped its feet, kicking up a lot of mud and dust. It looked frightening, but I moved slowly towards it, stick in hand. People were watching the scene hypnotized from nearby housetops. The elephant looked at me, red-eyed, ready to rush towards me. It lifted its trunk and trumpeted loudly. At moment I moved forward and, mustering all my force, wagged its third toenail on the quick. The beast looked stern for a moment, then it shivered from head to foot and collapsed. Now, certain important words. Hypnotize. Hypnotize means to influence, control, or direct completely. Control or direct completely as by personal charm, words, or domination. Mastering means putting together. Wagged, hit noisily. Collapsed, fell. Okay. Now, ये बहुत ही लंबा पैराग्राफ है, समझने में भी बहुत मजा आएगी. At the time of incident, Iswaran was studying in one of the junior classes in the school. He was watching the elephant from the rooftop. Suddenly, he took the stick from one of the teacher and ran downstairs towards the school ground. The elephant made a loud noise when he saw a small boy approaching it. It lifted a branch of tree in its trunk, hit his foot on the ground, which threw a lot of mud and dust in the air. The elephant was threatening Ishwaran, but the boy was not afraid of it. With the stick in his hand, he moved towards the elephant slowly. Many people had climbed on the rooftops of their house and were watching the incident. They were still standing and were awestruck, waiting to see what happened next. Ishwaran saw that elephant had red-colored eyes which were full of anger. It again lifted its trunk and made loud trumpet sound as it was about to attack Ishwaran. Just then Ishwaran gathered all his force and hit the elephant's third toenail quickly. The elephant was stunned at what had happened. Then it reacted by shivering all over, fainted and fell on the ground unconscious. Okay. Now next point, the next paragraph. At this point, Ishwaran would leave the story unfinished and get up mumbling, I will be back after lighting the gas and warming up the dinner. Mahendra, who had been listening with the rapt attention, would be left hanging. When he returned, Ishwaran would not pick up the thread of the story right away. Mahendra would have to remind him the conclusion first pending. Well, a veterinary doctor was summoned to revive the animal. Ishwaran would shrug casually. 2 days later, it was led away by its mahout to jungle. Now, rapt attention का मतलब होता है completely fascinated or absorbed by what one is saying or hearing. Then pick up the thread of the story. उसका मतलब होता है would not restart the story from where he left in order to arouse the curiosity. Then your veterinary doctor. ठीक है, veterinary doctor क्या होता है? Doctor who specialize in treating animals. Summoned means called. Shrug to raise one's shoulders slightly and momentarily to express doubt, ignorance, or indifference. So, after this, Iswaran would leave the story incomplete. In a low voice, he would say that he would return after lighting the gas stove to warm the dinner, as they were getting late for the meal. Mahendra would be curious to know what happened next and would feel disappointed that Ishwaran had left the story unfinished. On returning, he would not continue with the story as he wanted to arouse curiosity in Mahendra. Mahendra, who would be eager to know the ending, would ask Ishwaran to conclude the story. Ishwaran would just casually say that a veterinary doctor was called to bring the elephant back to consciousness, and after 2 days, the Mahout would take the elephant back to the jungle. Okay. Now, next paragraph. Well, how did you manage to do it, Ishwaran? How did you bring down the beast? So Mahendra was curious to know that how did the young Ishwaran manage to overpower the huge elephant. It has something to do with Japanese art, I think, sir. Karate or Jujitsu, it is called. I had read about it somewhere. It temporarily paralyzed the nervous system. You see. So Ishwaran said that he performed a Japanese martial art. He said it was either karate or jujitsu. He read about it somewhere that martial art rendered a person unconscious by disrupting the nervous system. And next paragraph. Not a day passed without Ishwaran's recounting some story packed with adventure, horror, and suspense. Whether the story was credible or not, Mahendra enjoyed listening to it because of inimitable way in which it was told. Ishwaran seemed to more than make up for the absence of TV in Mahendra's living quarter. Now, credible means able to believed, convincing. Inimitable means unique. Now, every day, Ishwaran would narrate one or the other story full of adventure, horror, and thrill. Sometimes Mahendra felt that story was friction, but still he enjoyed listening to it because of the unique way it was narrated by Ishwaran. As there was no television set at the place where they lived, these stories were a source of entertainment for Mahendra. Next paragraph. One morning when Mahendra was having breakfast, Ishwaran asked, "Can I make something special for dinner tonight, sir? After all, today is an auspicious day. According to tradition, we prepare various delicacies to feed the spirits of our ancestors today, sir." Auspicious means good. Delicacies means tasty food. Spirits means soul of dead. Ancestors means elders of the family. So one morning Mahendra was having breakfast. Iswaran asked him if he could prepare a special meal for dinner as it was a good day. He added that on that day they prepared special food for the souls of the dead elders of the family. Next paragraph. That night, Mahendra enjoyed the most delicious dinner and complimented Ishwaran on his culinary skills. He seemed very pleased but unexpectedly launched into a most garish account involving the supernatural. Now, culinary skills means related to cooking. Garish, something which is too colorful and fancy that is disliked. And supernatural means related to ghosts and spirits. So Ishwaran had preparing a delicious dinner, and Mahendra praised his cooking skills. Ishwaran was happy on being praised, but all of a sudden started narrating a detailed story relating to ghost and supernatural powers, which was described by Mahendra. Now, next paragraph. You know, sir, this entire factory area we are occupying once a burial ground. He started. Mahendra was jerked out of the pleasant revive he had drifted into after satisfying meal. I knew on the very first day, I knew on the first day itself when I saw a human skull lying on the path. Even now I come across a number of skulls and bones. Ishwaran continued. Now, reviver इसका मतलब a state of being pleasantly lost in one's thoughts, or you can also say it as a daydream. So Iswaran said to Mahendra that site of the factory was earlier a place where the dead were buried, burial ground. ठीक है? Mahendra jerked out of the pleasant thought after the tasty meal. Ishwaran continued that on the first day itself he had seen a human skull lying on the ground where he was returning after buying vegetables. Even later, he had come across a number of skulls and bones lying around the place. Next, next paragraph. He went to narrate how he sometimes saw ghosts at night. I'm not easily frightened by these things, sir. I am brave fellow, but one horrible ghost of woman which appears off and on at midnight during the full moon. It is an ugly creature with hair and a shriveled face like skeleton holding a fetus in its arm. So shriveled means wrinkled and shrunken. Fetus means unborn baby. You get. So Ishwaran added that sometimes he saw ghosts at night, although he was not scared of them as he was a brave person. But once he saw a very horrible ghost of woman. It appeared on the full night at 12 o'clock. It was very ugly, had matted hair, matted मतलब बिखरे हुए बाल, and a shrunken withered face. It looked like a skeleton holding an unborn baby in its arm. Next, Mahendra shivered at the description and interrupted rather sharply. You are crazy, Ishwaran. There are no such things as ghosts or spirits. It is all figment of your imagination. Get your digestive system examined and maybe your head as well. You are talking nonsense. So, figment means production. So, Mahendra disliked the story and interrupted sharply. He scolded Ishwaran and said that he had gone mad. Mahendra said that ghosts did not exist. He added that it was Ishwaran's imagination. He ordered Ishwaran to get himself checked up, to get his digestive system, and his brain exclaimed as he was speaking nonsense. Here, Mahendra asked him to get his digestive system checked up because when a person is suffering from constipation, he gets nightmares and dreams of ghosts and supernatural powers. Next, he left the room and retired for the night, except expecting Ishwaran to sulk for a couple of days. But next morning, he was surprised to find a cook as cheerful and talkative as ever. So sulk means be silent, moves, and bad-tempered out of annoyance or disappointment. So Mahendra had thought that Ishwaran would remain quiet for a few days as he was scolded him for previous night. He was astonished to see cheerful and talkative Ishwaran the next morning. Next paragraph. From that day on, Mahendra, for all his brave talk, went to bed with certain unease. Every night he peered darkness, into the darkness outside through the window next to his bed, trying to make sure that there was no movement of dark shape in the vicinity. But he could only see a sea of darkness with the twinkling lights of the factory miles away. Vicinity means nearby area. So Mahendra showed that he was very brave, but on the contrary, he was very uneasy because of the story Ishwaran had narrated. Every night before going to bed, he peeped out of the window next to his bed to assure himself that there was no ghost around. He did not see any ghost but only saw darkness and twinkling lights of the factory. Next paragraph, he had always liked to admire the milk-white landscape on full moon nights, but after hearing Ishwaran's stories of female ghosts, he avoided looking out of his window altogether when the moon was full. So before listening to the insurance story, Mahendra liked watching white colored landscape on full moon night as had told me that on full moon night a female ghost haunted place. He stopped looking out on that night as he was afraid bumping into ugly ghost. Next, one night Mahendra was woken up from his sleep by a low moan close to his window. At first he put it down to a cat prowling around for mice, but the sound was too brutal for a cat. He resisted the curiosity to look out lest he should behold a sight which would stop his heart. But the wailing became louder and less feline. He could not resist the temptation anymore. Lowering himself to the level of the window sill, he looked out at the white sheet of moonlight outside. There, not too far away, was a dark, cloudy form clutching a bundle. Mahendra broke into cold sweat and fell back on the pillow, panting. As he gradually recovered from the ghastly experience, he began to reason with himself and finally concluded that it must have been some sort of auto suggestions, some trick that his subconscious had played on him. So, too many difficult words you will find. First, moan means crying sound, crawling means searching, guttural means sound producing in the throat, harsh sounding, wailing that is crying sound, feline relating to the cats or other members of the cat family, panting, breathing heavily, ghastly, causing horror and fear. Autosuggestion means subconscious adoption of an idea which one has originated oneself. So, explanation of Suna. One night, as Mahendra was asleep, he was awakened by the sound of someone crying. He thought that it could be a cat looking for mice and tried to go back to sleep. The sound became more harsh and seemed to be human sound. Mahendra wanted to peep out of window but stopped himself as he was afraid that if he saw a ghost, he could even die. The crying sound became louder and it did not appear to be the sound of cat. Mahendra could not stop himself and so he bent down and lifted his head slightly in order to peep out. In the white colored moonlight, Mahendra saw the ghost. It was holding a bundle in one hand. Mahendra panicked. He was breathing heavily and well back on the bed. After some time, he recovered from the scary experience and thought that probably his subconscious mind was showing him the ghost as he had been thinking of it. He assured himself that actually there was no ghost and his mind was playing a trick on him. And next, sorry. By the time he had got up in the morning, had a bath, and come out to have his breakfast, the horror of the previous night had faded from his memory. Ishwaran greeted him at the door with his lunch packet and his bag. Just as Mahendra was stepping out, Ishwaran grinned and said, "Sir, remember the other day when I was telling you about the female ghost with photos in its arms? You were so angry with me for imagining things. Well, you saw her yourself last night. I came running here the sound of moaning that was coming from your room." So green means smile broadly. Resolving means deciding. Haunted place means visited by ghost. By the time Mahendra woke up, took his bath, and came out for the breakfast, he had forgotten the ghostly experience of the previous night. Ishwaran greeted him, gave him lunch and his bag. As Mahendra was about to leave, Ishwaran smiled and said that the other day Mahendra had scolded him for discussing the ugly ghost, but last night Mahendra himself saw it. Ishwaran had heard Mahendra's cries the previous night. And the last paragraph, a chill went down Mahendra's spine. He did not wait for Ishwaran to complete his sentence. He hurried away to his office and handed in his papers, resolving to leave the haunted place the very next day. The spine means backbone. Resolving means deciding. Handed his paper means resigned. Ishwaran's comment scared Mahendra once again. He did not hear him further and hurried off to his office. He decided to resign from the job and leave the haunted place. He could not live there any longer. That's the end of our story. Thank you very much, students.